Good morning. I'm Kevin Walker, Senior Vice President of Public Policy for the Overland Park Chamber. This interview is being conducted on behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, comprised of the Chambers of Commerce in Johnson County and the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Jointly, we host a site, votejoco.com, which is a nonpartisan site where voters can learn more about the candidates for public office. Today, we have with us Dr. Roger Marshall, who's a candidate for United States Senate. And we'd like to start with giving you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the Senate.
You bet, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. I'm in DC today. I wish we could be doing this in person, but I think first of all, I want you all to know just a little bit about who I am. But I was born and raised in Butler County, Kansas, a fifth-generation farm kid who became a first-generation college student. And my American dream was to become a doctor. I was blessed, got into KU Med Center. My wife and I got married about 2 weeks before school started. We did residency, military, and then moved back to Great Bend 27 years ago, where we delivered over 5,000 babies and raised 4 of our own. And now we have 2 and a third grandchildren. And just as an aside, being in a community like that as a physician, I also ran a hospital, several businesses, part of a community bank for 20 years. As an owner and a board member, of course, very involved in our local chamber for every year and served on their board for 3 years as well. So I have appreciation for what you all are doing as well. The reason I'm running for this for this seat is probably twofold. Number one is I want to make sure that our kids and grandkids have the same shot at the American dream that I've had. And I think to do that, they need a strong economy. We need good schools, good infrastructure, executing the basics in life, the fundamentals, that if you're concerned about the quality of education in Kansas or the roads and bridges or the rural broadband or broadband in Johnson County for that matter, high-speed internet, then I think it's a reflection of our economy, which has been rather stagnant for the past 4 or 5 years across the state. Certainly Johnson County's had a good run at it until COVID, and we need to do what we can get it to go again. One of the questions I got last week when I was in JOCO, someone asked me, what are my connections to Johnson County? And I want to share those just for a second. They say, you're from the big first, the western part of the state, but actually Great Bend's in the very center of the state. But we do have a lot of connections to Johnson County. I described medical school already. Our first child was born there, so that's always makes it a special place. We have 2 grown sons now that work in Johnson County. And our next grandchild is going to be delivered in Johnson County as well. So blood is truly thicker than water. So that means something special to me as well. From a personal financial standpoint, we've been invested in a healthcare company for over 20 years in Johnson County. We have a bank branch in Johnson County as well, 143rd and Metcalf, that's been there since 2008. Again, I was vice chairman of that board and an investor, very active in that board. Of course, I had to step away from that spot once I was in Congress, though my wife is able to still own the stock. So we're financially invested in the community. To say that we've been in Johnson County, visited over 100 different companies in my 3 years in Congress would be an underestimate. I'm sure we've visited hundreds of them. My theory has always been that my commodities run through Kansas City in many, many ways. So I wanted to connect the big first to the corporate headquarters for many of my companies. So I think about, National Beef and Cargill and Seaboard and DFA and on and on and on, how important agriculture is to Johnson County. 22% of your economy is actually agriculture related. So we've tried to make that connection. And now as your U.S. Senator, expanding that market as well. So when I'm in Mexico City negotiating the USMCA trade agreement a couple of years ago, the final round, invited there as a freshman to be there for that final round of negotiations, I realized that financial services is a great opportunity in Mexico and Canada that was being hampered. So making that a priority. When I think about Johnson County, I think about the financial services industry in many, many ways. So opening up that has always been a priority. So I'm, a doctor, military experience, agriculture experience, but I'm also a business person, signed a paycheck every other week for 25 years. Started off with just 3 employees, finished up with over 300 employees running a hospital that a group of doctors own that I helped run as well. So maybe I'll stop there, Kevin, and open it up to questions and answers, but looking forward to the discussion today.
Well, thank you so much for that rundown of your bio, and we will transition to those questions. Let me start with what you see as the top 2 or 3 business policy issues facing our country right now.
Yeah. It's hard to even start any conversation without talking about COVID, but we have to safely and responsibly get our economy open again. I think that's the priority right now. And, my job at the federal level is to empower local communities to solve that problem. I'm proud that the Kansas unemployment rate has dropped to 7% now. And I think to get the economy up and going, number one is we need some type of liability protection for employers as well as decision makers like folks that are deciding going back to school. So I think we need liability protection. We need to continue the low tax structure that we have. We need to have a vaccine, all those types of things to allow us to safely and responsibly get our economy going again. If we had the greatest economy in my lifetime prior to COVID, so we need to reestablish that. And I have faith that we can do just that. Well, Kevin, I got to add one thing. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So we've been in 160 cities over the past 4 weeks, and the biggest issue that employers talk to me about is number one is this unemployment insurance is preventing people from coming back to work. So we need to end the unemployment benefit of that $600 a week. We need to wind that down in some progressive fashion as well. Prior to that, the biggest concerns that I hear from businesses was the cost of healthcare. And I bet we'll address that a little bit later in one of these questions.
I think we might.
Yeah.
You touched on taxes briefly, and I'd like to ask you to expand a little bit on your views on federal tax policy.
Right. So I'm very proud of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that we did, lowering the corporate tax rate as well as the individual tax rate. So the average Kansan kept about $2,000 more of their hard-earned money. So number one is we need to make those permanent. Those will run out. I think they were a 10-year plan. So those will run out. And I think, number two is this country is going to have a big choice this fall in November. Bernie Sanders has promised to raise the taxes, especially the corporate taxes, back to what they were before. I would love to see us lower them, but I think for now, the opportunity is to keep those stable would be great. Maybe there's some taxes that we pay every couple weeks for the federal stuff, the FDIC, those things, we could probably put a hold on those as well. So I think main thing is to hold the course. And I want to emphasize to folks that despite those tax cuts, we had record revenues coming into Washington, D.C.
And you had already mentioned the impact of COVID, and I'm curious, what would you propose, if anything, to provide further relief to Kansas businesses that have been impacted by COVID, particularly to encourage recovery and promote economic growth?
Right. So again, emphasize the need for liability, winding down the unemployment part of this. What I don't want to do is to borrow a lot more money from our grandchildren. I think only maybe a third or half of the $4 trillion we've already appropriated has hit Main Street so far. We need to give the governor, some other officials more flexibility in the money that we've given them so that they can allow it to be used across the state of Kansas. The Paycheck Protection Program is something that we worked very hard on that saved 400,000 Kansan jobs, that we loaned out 50,000 loans, $5 billion, saved 400,000 Kansas jobs. There's still some more money left in that we've not used either. So what type of flexibility could we go forward with as well? So those will be my priorities right now. We need laser shots to help people. We don't need to keep shooting a shotgun in the air.
I'd like to transition a little bit to the international stage and get your thoughts on international trade and specifically about tariffs.
Yeah, so I'm so proud to work beside the president on renegotiating trade agreements. We've actually renegotiated 55% of the ag export markets. That would be with China, Japan, South Korea, USMCA agreement as well. So going forward, there's 45% of the market left. So we're going to keep focused right now on Great Britain, the European Union, India, and the African nations. And I'll give you an example of how this tariff issue works, okay? I would love for there to be no tariffs in a perfect world. But I was honored to be asked to go to France and help celebrate the 70th anniversary of D-Day as the congressman from Kansas, from Eisenhower's home district as well. And everywhere I went when I would speak with the European Union leaders is that they want to exclude agriculture from any type of trade negotiations. And the president responded, well, that's well and good. I'm just going to slap a tariff on your luxury cars. So the tariffs have been a necessary tool that we've had to use to be able to get the attention of China. And I'm so proud of the China trade agreement that we did get done with working with the president, and that quietly there's a lot of agriculture exports going to China right now. So we use those to be accountable. Bob Lighthizer is the USTR, by the way. He broke in to DC under the tutelage of Senator Bob Dole, whose birthday is today. So make sure you go on his Facebook and message him. I was on a call with him yesterday for an hour. He did a fundraiser for us, but we'll be wishing him a happy birthday. So the tariffs have to be used in a judicious fashion, but ultimately we do need these bilateral trade agreements to help us out. USMCA is kicking in right now. Without the tariffs, that would have never came to fruition. I mentioned it started July the 1st is when it's going to be implemented. The opportunity in financial services, the opportunity in manufacturing will be there as well. And by the way, very focused on how we can get those manufacturing markets, production back from China, back over here to the United States as well.
Talk to me a little bit about your views on our national immigration policy, and more specifically, do you support employment-based immigration reforms to assist with workforce shortages?
Right. So I'm very proud of my record on the immigration and the battles that we fought up here already. So you can look at my record. Number one, any type of immigration reform starts with securing the border, and building the wall was part of that. That the DHS designed a $25 billion plan, about 800 miles of wall, the rest of the money invested in technology, drug dogs, that type of thing. So I think that no matter what we do going forward, if we don't secure that border, we'll just be revisiting the problem. So we've worked very hard on a comprehensive program that fixed DACA, that took care of agriculture guest worker visas, but also the H-2B folks and the H-2As, the folks that Garmin needs, and the technology jobs as well that actually grow our economy. And you may recall that I'm taking a lot of heat for that from one of my opponents, that I actually went out and listened to employers and job creators where the needs were, and had asked for improvement of those. And I understand COVID situation, the president doesn't want to do that. I support the president's immigration policies, have 100% voting record supporting him, and we'll keep doing that. But I do want to fix a very broken immigration system. Haven't invested a lot of time. We got really, really close to getting it over the finish line. I think we came within about 20 or 30 votes on the House side of doing it. And as we move over to the Senate, that'll continue to be a priority as well. You know, gosh, if we want to see the Kansas economy grow, you know, pre-COVID, probably the cost of healthcare and a lack of employees for the jobs we have were the number one and two things. And I'm not sure in which order that we're holding the Kansas economy back.
I want to bring things back to the domestic front for a couple of questions. And I want to ask you about your your ideas for long-term funding solutions for our transportation infrastructure.
Right. You know, this is going to take a bold president, probably a second-term president, to execute a plan like this. But President Trump, if you would go in the Oval Office when Mick Mulvaney was his chief, the president Mick had a list of the president's campaign promises, and some had check marks beside him and some didn't, and infrastructure is one of them. So certainly infrastructure, when I think about the future of our children and our grandchildren, that American dream is a huge priority. But to do that, you know, we need a strong economy. How are we going to fund it is always the question. Is it going to be a gas tax? We haven't had a gas tax raise since the mid-1990s, and now our cars are much more efficient as well. So I think infrastructure is a great investment. As we go forward, we'll see where this economy is in a month or two or three. I'd rather be paying people to be building roads and bridges. And I always include rural broadband and high-speed internet whenever I talk about infrastructure as well now. I'd rather be paying folks to be building infrastructure than giving them an unemployment check. So I think that there's an opportunity here as well. Interest rates are low. I hate to borrow money from our future generations ever, but if there was something to borrow money for, I think infrastructure would be one of the things to be talking about. Every community has their priority. I'm going to tell you what I think is the biggest return on investment for Kansas from an infrastructure standpoint, and it's probably working on the Missouri River and allowing more and more of our export products to load on these bigger barges. I visited the Missouri River, the U.S. Corps of Engineers, about a month ago, and just talked about that we no longer have the capacity to handle some of the bigger barges. So I think that would be a huge return on investment for Kansans as well. Certainly there's multiple highway and bridge opportunities as well that we need to get our products to market. But I think that would be one that would be a priority that I think we could get the Missouri congressmen and senators on board with as well. And it'd be a win-win opportunity for all of us. And by the way, I'm very proud of getting the Agriculture Research Office moved to Kansas City. I wish it was Kansas City, Kansas, but we'll keep growing that animal health market. Is just one of the biggest bright spots of Kansas economy and opportunities as well.
Good. Well, and as you guessed earlier on, I do have a question about healthcare, and I'm curious about your thoughts on the federal government's role in our healthcare system.
Yeah. So I guess what I want is less federal government. If you think about what Medicare for All is, let me back up. Both Democrats and Republicans want to end the ACA. So both Democrats and Republicans want to end it. The Democrats want to replace it with more government control, and I want to replace it. Republicans want to replace it with more choice as well. So I just hope that everybody on this call realizes that Medicare for All would take away the health care you get through your job, as well as decrease health care for veterans and seniors. So we do have a solution, and this is where the national media has it wrong. The Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus in Congress, has asked me to write the legislation to replace the ACA. And we're probably have 80-90% of it done, and part of it is available. Writing healthcare solutions is a never-ending story, but our solutions, number one, focuses on taking care of pre-existing conditions. And then number two is we want to empower patients. We want to give patients more choices, promote competitions, promote transparency. And we do that through many, many little pieces, promoting association healthcare plans, which Farm Bureau has taken my concept from 3 years ago that we worked through the administration, and that made it all the way to Farm Bureau. And their members are now paying probably half the price of what they are paying for healthcare already. But we can certainly expand HSAs, bring on HRAs. Healthcare ministry plans are great solutions as well. But all these involve empowering patients, promoting competition, letting patients own their own healthcare record, concierge medicine, primary healthcare doctors who would actually know who you are and your children are and your wife's first name. Some of those types of concepts are all important as well. Innovation is going to do more to bring down the price of healthcare than any legislation I can write if we just get the federal government out of the way, which kind of leads me to pharmacy. Everyone is, of course, very concerned about pharmacy prices. I'm part of the Doc Caucus, 9 members that are doctors on the House side. We've been working with HHS and CMS since day one. For the first time in decades, pharmacy prices across the country have went up 0 to 2%. One reason is we're expediting generic drug approval. So that's helped bring the prices down. I could talk for the next hour about pharmacy benefit managers and how they're clawing back money and hurting consumers as well. But I think there's great opportunities in that area as well. And by the way, healthcare is 28% of the federal budget. If you want me to balance the budget, which is a huge priority to me, it's all going to start with figuring out how to deliver quality care, but driving down the prices that we're paying. So somewhere between Medicare paying dollars and the VA paying dollars and the patient down here, there's so many people scooping out money in between that are not adding to the quality of healthcare. So we are trying to expose that. We want to maintain quality, but we got to drive the price down.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to give one last question. What do you think distinguishes you most from your opponents in the race?
Well, I think number one is that we can win the general election. I think that all the data would show, the people of Kansas took a poll 2 years ago. It was called the governor's election. And we handed the seat over to a Democrat in anti-business policy right now. So I think number one is we can win the general election and keep a Republican majority. And if you think Supreme Court justices, tax policy, strong economy, military, taking care of our veterans is important, then I think you need to keep that in mind. obviously our experience in healthcare. The Democrats will make healthcare the #1 issue of this fall election, whether we like it or not. And I happen to like it. I happen to like healthcare, and I think taking on another position that we need a Democrat position, that we need a very knowledgeable voice on this. Military experience, obviously, I think is helps with any type of national security policy. And then I'm really the only person that's qualified to be on the Agriculture Committee. I grew up in agriculture and significantly still invested in it, and then helping write a farm bill. Other ag policy we've been working on. There's been quite a steep learning curve, but I think we're getting there as well. So those are several things. I think what I offer is just a very broad spectrum of experiences. If you think about our resume, and I'm applying for a job, the job of being your next senator, if you would look at our resume, see the different opportunities that we've had in life, there's probably not a job I've not done at some point in my career in the industry, from being a bartender at Kites and working at a cell barn growing up, to running a hospital and now a U.S. congressman. I think that we offer a very broad-based experience of most every industry that's represented in your Johnson County Chambers of Commerce. So it's good that I understand that what overregulation does to your businesses as well. So there you have it.
Great. Well, before I close things down, I just want to give you one last chance if there's any closing thoughts you want to share with everyone.
Yeah, I think when folks go to the ballot box in November, they're going to look at the list of candidates and they're going to say which one of these folks have helped us through this crisis, through the health care crisis as well as the economic crisis. And they're also going to look and see which one of these candidates is best suited to help guide Kansas safely back to prosperity. And what I pledge to you is I'm going to be the senator that has two hands on the steering wheel, a doctor and a senator who cares about the health of Kansas, as well as bringing our economy back in a safe, responsible fashion. And that the experiences that I've been given through life will allow me to be a calm voice of hope for folks. And I think that's what we need right now, is a message of hope and a plan as well. I'm very proud of how hard we've worked and got Kansas to this point through the virus. We have a lot more work to do, and I would be honored by your endorsements, and I'd be honored by your vote as well to be your next U.S. Senator. Thanks for having me.
Well, Dr. Marshall, thank you for giving us some of your time today. I know you've got a busy schedule, and I'll just wrap things up by reminding everybody that advanced voting in person and mail balloting is taking place right now. And of course, primary election day is Tuesday, August 4th, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we encourage everyone to get out and vote.
Yep. Kevin, thank you.